Hello, and welcome to Building Sustainability Podcast. I'm your host, Jeffrey Hart, aka Jeffrey the Natural Builder. Building Sustainability consists of conversations with designers, builders, makers, dreamers, and doers, exploring the wide world of sustainability in the built environment by talking to wonderful people who are doing excellent things. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Building Sustainability. This is an episode that I have partnered with Earth Building UK and Ireland to bring you, and it focuses on trainees in earth building. Before we get into the episode, I just want to tell you very quickly about a giveaway that I have got going on at the minute. If you head to my Instagram, that's instagram.com/Jeffrey the Natural Builder, there is a giveaway for a hand-carved wooden spoon by me and a turned on a foot-powered lathe bowl by Jeff Hannes. So yeah, get yourself a lovely wooden eating set. I've said it before, but it would change your world. Also, the people that have been supporting the podcast on the Patreon site, I have been busy carving up and finishing off some little spoons, and I'll be sending those out today. The final thing to note, which is tied to this episode, is that this weekend, Friday and Saturday, the 27th and 28th of November 2020, is the Earth Building UK and Ireland Conference Clayfest. And in this there will be loads of great talks about a range of different earth building techniques, styles from different places around the country, different places around the world. It also features a question and answer session with me, Jeffrey Hart. So I will be talking about this episode of the podcast. And it's a question and answer session, so you can get involved and we can discuss. You can buy tickets for Earth Building's conference at ebuki.co and then click on the Clayfest link. This is the first of a two-part episode, and it features 4 conversations with different trainee earth builders who are all in various stages of their education. I wanted to record this episode, first of all, as a kind of advice for people wanting to get into natural building, get into earth building, maybe straw, because it's not necessarily a straightforward thing to do. You can't really do a college course. So this episode will sort of highlight some of the different routes that people have taken. But the main reason I wanted to do this episode was for the training providers to see what's being offered from a trainee's perspective and what the gaps are. I think we often hear about the training being provided by the trainers themselves, and I don't think you're getting a full picture. I've tried to find stories and routes to highlight the possible options, and I think what comes out of all of this is that there's a definite gap in the training available. At the end of the second part of this episode, I have given some analysis of what I've heard and the solution I think will make the training process better for future earth builders. So I should say that these are quite edited versions of the whole interviews. To make them fit into the podcast format, I had to take out quite a lot of the individual experiences they've had. And so that may be interesting for people wanting to get into earth building. I will pop the whole interviews, very lightly edited, up on my Patreon site. You can listen there along with all the other bonus audio from the podcast. You can choose your own donation for that, and those will go up as soon as possible. This episode features conversations with Kit Jones and Anna Castilla Vila. I hope I've pronounced that right, Anna. I tried my best. Without further delay, enjoy the episode.
I suppose the ideal would be to get to a point where I could turn up on site and dig a bit of the ground up from underneath my feet and run a whole series of kind of rigorous tests on it that would tell me exactly what I've got, and then be able to figure out what could be built just using what is already there, what's already on site. That's the sort of that's the romance of the romance of earth building to me is rigorous testing, but also being able to use the material that is already there, and to incorporate that into whatever I'm building, and not to see that material as something that has to be dug out and discarded and just find something to do with it, but actually something that can shape what it is that I'm building.
And do you see earth as like your main employment, or do you see it as a sort of part of your arsenal?
I'd see it as part of my arsenal. I describe myself as a sort of craft builder who, and I guess timber framing or carpentry woodwork would be my main skill set. But I also love to incorporate. I've done quite a few straw bale buildings, and love to incorporate earth and lime and other materials that sort of fit well with that, as part of what I do. Yeah.
Nice. And so it sounds like you're focused on natural materials predominantly.
Yes, but also with
you don't want to build concrete.
No, I don't. I've never yet built a concrete skyscraper. No, so but that doesn't mean I'm not ambitious. No, but so mostly natural materials, but also with perhaps a sort of pragmatic bent to it as well, of like where different situations require some more manufactured materials.
And how did you get into it?
When I graduated, I went to CAT, the centre, and I worked there in a whole range of different roles, kind of communications and information and advice and media work, and worked in the restaurant, just did most of the jobs that they've got going there, to be honest. And like, it was a great opportunity working at CAT because you can just do courses for free, and it so I just did as many as I could, particularly the building ones. And I guess part of working at CAT also meant I was quite lucky in terms of having lots of contacts of people working in the natural building world already, so was then able to sort of pick up work on interesting projects, and doing interesting work.
And then what was your first training in earth then?
Well, the first training I did in earth would have been at the Centre for Alternative Technology. So Roland Keeble regularly comes to CAT, and he teaches rammed earth particularly, but we'll sort of cover bits and pieces about earth in general. And one of his things that is particularly memorable is that he does an earth building sort of hour and a half, or like couple of hour long lecture, but it's billed as a lecture, but actually it's more like a magic show. It's like absolutely phenomenal. You've probably seen it yourself. But just demonstrating the kind of physical properties of Earth, and of the different components of Earth. And it really is magical, like just doing subtly different things to the earth and producing like really dramatic results. And so that that was part of that experience of coming across earth and earth building at CAT, and yeah, so cat was my first introduction to it.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Um, so I guess, well, if I understand you correctly, so you did all your sort of short courses while at CAT, which would have been sort of paid for courses if you hadn't worked there, or did you pay for them? I don't know.
No, just yeah.
And then you, because of the contacts you made, you then were able to get jobs working sort of actually on real live building sites, and then you went and did Princess Foundation. Is that a rough sort of timeline?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. How did you find crossing that gap from being paid for learning short courses into being paid to actually do the thing you'd just been learning about?
To be honest, I don't think in many ways I don't think I've done a lot of like being paid to do the thing that I've just learned on the course. I think the things that I learned on the courses at CAT like have come in handy, but I essentially like started working on natural builds as a labourer, and like as a paid labourer, but like as someone who wasn't the expert, but was there to sort of get move things like cut when someone said cut here, cut there, and just like doing a lot of like mixing of lime and so when I was doing that, I probably wasn't really drawing a great deal on stuff that I'd learned in short courses. It was more like doing the courses had given me a taste for doing that kind of work. But actually, I think the learning then came from working on site as a labourer and then being able to sort of do more interesting things and work more autonomously from like being on site and figuring out what needed to be done kind of thing. Yeah, and so if for people who are thinking of getting into like natural building and don't know where to start, like I would really recommend that as a route would be convince someone to pay you, but not like probably not going to get paid that much, but get paid something to do like a labourer's job and learn on the job from there, because I think learning to add value as someone who is paid is like a different thing to being a volunteer, where the danger is you end up learning how to be a volunteer, which is like really fun and enjoyable, but it's kind of a bit different to
What do you think the differences are? Like, how do you feel like you get a better experience, or do you feel like you get a better experience being a labourer over a volunteer?
I think you get to learn more of a sense of your worth. So I think I just think it's a great habit to get into to be in the habit of like charging people for your work. um and I worry about like the sector as a whole when work that is that should be paid for it gets done by people who aren't being paid. And I think that creates a sector where there's a very broad base of people who dabble, who sort of like are able to sort of come to a building site and kind of be involved, and that it's very hard to then like make the step from being someone who's a sort of like a volunteer or a dabbler to being someone who to being able to make that like a stable job that you can build a life on. And so yeah, I think it's a great habit to get into anyway, to charge for your work.
So you've also done the Prince's Foundation. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? And I guess one of the important factors about the sort of training opportunities is whether you were paid. So do you want to talk about what the Prince's Foundation was like for that?
So yeah, one of the great things about the Prince's Foundation is that it's a year-long training. Well, actually, usually it's 9 months, but in my case, it was a year-long training program, and it's paid. Like you get paid a sort of educational bursary, which is about £1,000 a month, and then they also provide your sort of living, like somewhere for you to live, and other bits and bobs as well. So it's something that makes it much more accessible. There's other reasons why perhaps it's not accessible to everyone. For instance, you do have to kind of move around the country quite a lot, but but in that sense of being paid, it's great, and it's a fantastic situation to be in, to be paid and to be building real buildings that are going to be used, but also to know that you are able to focus on your learning, and it's not a completely commercial environment where you just got to get it done. It's it really gives you the space to be more considered about learning, and about thinking through how you're learning and what you're learning. So that's great. And I was also really lucky to be in a group where one of the people in the group is an earth builder, and he's from India, Saurabh.
Okay.
Have you come across Saurabh?
No, I don't think so.
He well, he's fantastic. Shout out to Saurabh if you're listening to this. He has spoken at like ebook ebook events.
Oh, did he talk last year?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he did. Yeah,
I think he might have been the highlight of my time.
I could totally imagine that. He does really like fantastic presentations where everything is kind of hand drawn, and
yes,
like
that was
really
it. And that you sculpt the cob and the cob sculpts you.
Right.
I think was the message.
Yeah. So I was really lucky to be like he was one of the learners in my group as well. So and he has got like a tremendous amount of experience because he is from India, and so has spent 10 years or so kind of working all over India in different villages, and often kind of quite remote places, on earth buildings, and so probably has sort of like like unrivaled experience from anyone in the UK in many ways, and so I think that that probably highlights one of the points of about training, is that the other people that you're training with are really, really important as well, and you learn a huge amount from one another, and so it was always great, like when we were doing stuff to do with earth building, that Sora brought all of his experience and had like sometimes different ways of doing things, sometimes same way, similar ways of doing things, but yeah, it 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 made for some great conversations and some like really enhanced the learning. Yeah.
Okay, so on the course, well, I know Princess Foundation is building and then going off and working with craftspeople sort of on your own. But on the actual sort of course side of it, was it were you led by an expert, or was it sort of self discovery, or were you how sort of free were you to sort of make your own mistakes, or were you just sort of told what to do?
So most of what I was doing when I was on the Princess Foundation course was timber framing, and so we had these 3 different builds, and and there was a slightly different degree of how much we were led and how much we were sort of self-led in those 3 buildings. But so yeah, a bit of a mixture of the two. When it came to the earth building, I guess like once you start a big cob wall, it is quite repetitive. So so we were led. I think Alex during that period, he was coming up kind of like 2 or 3 days a week, and then we were also kind of getting on with stuff a bit in between the time that he was there. He led us, I suppose, but also kind of I don't know. His style is also very much about like creating the space for other people to contribute and other people to be thinking about things and as well. And
did that work well for you? That sort of learning style?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And
what is about it that you like?
Well, the thing about cob, so we were doing clay dabbins, and which is a style of cob building where you have kind of thinner layers of cob with layers of straw in between, and the layers of straw act as a sort of mesh, which makes which strengthens the wall and allows you to build faster, higher, quicker, without waiting for it to dry. So lost my train of thought a bit there. What was your question, Jeffrey?
I was asking you whether the sort of style of learning there was good for you, and what you liked about it.
Yeah. Well, what I liked about it particularly was because there was Alex and there was Saurabh there, and then I, was really interested in it, but without a huge amount of kind of prior knowledge. I would like, whilst we were building, there was a lot of time just for sort of conversation, and so I felt like I could just ask loads and loads of questions, and the conversation could be kind of not just sort of, learner asks the question and then teacher tells the answer, but like much more conversational. So like, a question would lead to like an answer, which would lead to another answer, which would lead to other like questions, and it was just going in lots of directions. So so that was really great. That was what worked really well for me. Yeah. And then we did, as well as building the the cob wall, we also we kind of worked a bit faster than we were anticipating, so we had a bit of time, a few days left at the end, so we did a few days of kind of experimenting with looking at different plasters, and doing some sort of like earth floor samples, and um, talking about some of those other kind of techniques and things as well. And and we made we made some Adobe bricks as well, and we used those for the top part of the wall, which was less kind of accessible for the cob. So yeah, so it was good to sort of branch out and get quite a range of different methods in there as well. But also, that kind of looking at those different techniques also kind of highlights quite a lot of different similarities between them, and how it's about you almost sort of stop thinking about things in terms of like the product of like plaster or like bricks or like all these. We have very much like a tendency to like categorize things as different products, but when it comes to earth, it's not quite like that. It's more of a spectrum of different kinds of earth and different kinds of mixes, uh and like I guess I want to be like, have you watched the Lego movie?
I have, yes.
Where like there's like master builders who could just like switch up things and like make anything out of anything, and I want to be like that with Earth. Like I can turn up as a site and all there is a pile of mud, and I'll be like, right, and then we switch it up and now it's a floor, now it's a wall, now. Do you know what I mean?
I love it. Yes, I know exactly what you mean. That's ace. So the next part of the Princess Foundation, when you are heading out on placements, can you describe sort of how that worked and where you went?
Yeah. So when I think there's more of a placements element for my program. We just did 6 weeks of placements, so not that much as a proportion of the overall program, but I did some great placements. So I did a week with Becky Little, who's a Scottish Scotland-based earth builder, who does some fantastic work, and we were working that week on a mill in the Cairngorms, which had like a very old mill. I can't remember exactly when from, but it was being turned into somewhere which people could visit, and so it had a beaten earth floor, and that was really interesting work because it was like trying to investigate kind of what that was composed of and repair the sections which had sort of been hollowed out, and make that sort of safe for people to visit. So that was really interesting week, and also like great in terms of learning, because it's most of the time it's just Becky and I working together, and so you just have like someone with all this experience, and you're one-to-one with them for a week, and you're like doing a particular task, but it's the kind of task that once you start it, it's like you're doing the same thing over and over again. So it just leaves this space for conversation, and for like a huge amount of like brain picking. And yeah, so it's another great experience just to like spend a week with someone who with all of that knowledge, and part of the conversation is about like methods and techniques and things like that, but most of it is more about philosophy, or like but like philosophy as it applies to maths.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Well, what have been the highlights of your training?
Oh, well, I feel like I've just rattled through them all. But yeah, like I think there's some really, really excellent people in this world, in this natural building world. And yeah, and so uh yeah, I just like the chance to work alongside some of them um has been fantastic. It is fantastic. Um, and yeah, um, I think um, yeah, I think it's the conversations that we have. It's funny actually when I was doing that stuff with Alex for the Princess Foundation. Um, was when you were just starting
Okay.
the podcast and you did the one with Emma, uh, and we did some work with Emma as well as part of the Princess Foundation, like looking at her 100 ways and stuff. And so Alex came in one morning and was like, okay, I've just been listening to this podcast and now we're all going to stretch and we're all going to do all this. And I was like, brilliant, this is great, this is what it's all about.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear.
And I love that, I love that about earth building and about natural building, is where people are like driven not just to like create beautiful buildings, but also to create like fantastic building sites where like people are like engaging with one another um in a way, like, and collaborating with one another, uh to like to treat building as a craft rather than like bashing something together, and to treat it as a craft and as a collective activity. It's fantastic.
Great. Okay, so why don't you tell me about maybe some of the obstacles you faced?
It's hard to get to the point. Like, it feels like you'd have to know quite a lot to be confident about saying, yes, we could build this out of this earth. And so um I I don't know exactly what the steps are for me to get from being like, I've done this earth building and it was great, to being like, uh, whatever you want to do, I can do it. or uh, um, yeah, I suppose what I'm talking about is career progression. It's hard to know how to like advance my capabilities in earth building. Like, it's really that it feels like there's lots of opportunities for like entry level kind of getting involved with earth building, and there's a few people in the UK who have a lot of expertise in earth building, and I feel like I'm kind of a bit further than the entry level, but I'm not like an expert either. It's that intermediate level stuff, I suppose, is what I feel like is perhaps a bit lacking.
So, what might the program look like that gets you from where you are, sort of past the beginner to that stage that you want to be at?
Well, there's maybe two sides to what I think is needed. So one is a bit more of a like technical side, of like, if I'm gonna like use earth in a building, I want to know, like, I want to be able to look at it rigorously and say, like, this is how this earth behaves, this is what its composition is, and like the kind of tests that I know how to do that that everyone's sort of taught on the introductory courses and stuff is all the jam jar tests and the ribbon tests and the shrink tests and all of that sort of thing. It doesn't really feel rigorous enough to actually want to just go to a site and do some of those tests and be like, yeah, let's do it. So my brain wants something that's a bit more kind of hard and fast to be able to say, like, we did this test and these are the numbers that came out, and because it's over this threshold then we can do this kind of thing. And so that's more perhaps of like an academic or like technical kind of training, and so I'm definitely like on the lookout for that. And then the other side is just more of a like range of practical experience, so like a range of different kinds of building sites that are using and I suppose I could probably like find some of that, like if I really focused on doing Earth, but because I do timber framing as well, and that's kind of like my main thing, I suppose, and I feel confident about that, and I know what I'm doing, and therefore I'm probably also worth more financially uh doing that. That's what I've sort of gravitated towards. And I suppose with timber framing, it also, yeah, it feels like there's more clear path for kind of career progression in that. Uh, and so, yeah, so in terms of earth building, I really love incorporating it in what I do, but to be able to do that more confidently, I need more. I need more on the ground experience, and I also need more technical training, I think.
Okay, so final question is, if you were going to do it all again, knowing what you know now, I guess, what would you do differently?
If I was going to do what all again, learn
sort of go through the training process, and kind of get to where you are, or maybe get to where you aspire to be.
I don't see a lot of other options at the moment. As it, if there was a kind of an apprenticeship in earth building, or if there was something that was what I've described in terms of like rigorous on the technical side and broad on the experience side, if there was like a program that someone had created and it was like and it looked really great, then then that would be great, then that's what I would do. But as far as I know, no such thing exists. And to talk about the like, to get to the sort of level where you could consider earth building to be your main thing, rather than like your side hustle, rather than something that you can incorporate into your work, then I think you're talking about like a program that like lasts for several years, and yeah, and goes into a lot of detail on the technical side and things. And if such a thing had existed, then I would have signed up for that like a shot, like a few years ago when I was first getting into this stuff.
Yeah,
maybe I still would.
Maybe I would. Like, I guess the payment thing comes up in my mind again. If that perfect thing existed, would you be willing to pay for it? Would you still want to be paid? Would you think it'd be okay to be a trainee rate?
Yeah, well, the great thing about the Apprentice foundation thing is that it is that you're being paid, and I think there is just something that I like about that, not just because you're being paid, but because of the way that you are then treated as someone that also you have to also produce something, and aside from the fact that it allows you to live, I think being paid is also attractive for that reason, just because it changes your relationships to the program. And like the other way around, if you are paying for something, yeah, there's a different kind of relationship, isn't it? Because then it's like more like education as a commodity. So yeah, if there was some sort of like master's program whereby you paid for it, and you could get like a sort of an educational loan kind of thing for it, then yeah, maybe I'd consider it. But also, on the other hand, it would probably just make me be more likely to feel like, well, I'm gonna concentrate on doing what I'm doing, and yeah, I don't know. It's hard to talk really speculatively about something like that, but
why don't you start by telling me how long you have been training?
I would say in the biology of building was a lot of training, because that is when I did my essay in natural finishes.
Yeah, well, let's start there. So when did you do your
2013?
2013.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and what was that you did?
So in English would translate as biology of building. So it takes care of the construction with an holistic approach, so to make it environmentally friendly, but also a big focus in the relationship with the human being, not only about the choice of materials, which was one of the most important things, but also the electromagnetic fields, the psychological effects of our built surroundings. I just covered the whole thing that for building makes sense. It's common sense.
And where was that course?
In Spain. It's actually from Germany, but there was a couple of Germans that translated to Spanish, and it's quite well known in Spain.
Oh, is it an online course, or is it
yes, it's online with you get to meet and do some sessions in person as well, but most of it is online.
And how was that as a way of learning?
Well, for me, it really opened my mind completely, because although I've been working with construction all my professional time, but because my previous career was architectural interior design, I always found that something was lacking or missing from what I've learned in the university. So after studying this master's, it was like very opening my mind to say, okay, this makes sense. And is it actually common sense? Why are we all not taking these basics for building whatever we build? Yeah.
So that was 2013. Did that make you sort of want to become like working with Earth or working?
What did happen? So I had to do like a final dissertation for the master's. So I chose, because I was very fascinated about how the materials can make like a big effect of the constructions we live in. I decided to do my essay in natural finishes, so specializing in earth and lime finishes. So for me, in order to write that, I realized that I was reading all the books, but I had to get hands-on. So I quit my job and I spent a whole year just traveling and volunteering in different natural building and permaculture sites, trying to kind of put in practice what I was learning and trying to understand better. And so I had the opportunity to learn and touch the materials, and I realized that I was very happy actually doing that part of it more than sitting down and then trying. Yeah. So since then, it was a slow process, maybe because there's not really a direct way of how to do then this job professionally. So it took me a bit of time. So I got back into designing because I couldn't see really like a route of how to actually do this. I saw it as a dream, but not as an easy way to get into. So I continued my design work, and every chance I had, I would just go and get involved with people, volunteer, go to workshops. Then what was very, very, very helpful was to be part of the Princess Foundation Building Craft Apprenticeship, which you already done. And that was a great opportunity to meet with master crafts in plastering, because plastering is what I was enjoying the most. And I got to learn a lot from these people I met during the program, and I'm still working with them these days. It separated my route from the earth because I'm not doing as much earth as I'd like to do. I'm doing lots of lime work and gypsum, but I still feel like I'm learning loads, and I value all the training I'm still receiving in my day-to-day work. So, yeah, and still when I have time off, I go and travel, and I still get involved with some stuff and volunteer or organize a workshop in the other end of the world or do something creative with it.
What was it that got you into, why did you do the course, the initial course in Spain?
The biology of building. Well, because having my background in construction already, but from the designing point of view, I kind of had that crisis, a bit of like the way of construction is done, just didn't feel right. I just felt like something could be done better. And I did a volunteer in a small strawberry construction in Bristol. That was maybe 2012. And I was like, oh, that's completely new, and I have no idea about this. No one told me about any of these materials in university. So it was like, what is this? So, and then, so I just started finding some information. I met someone that did the course, and I decided to join in, and it was all new things to learn, but at the same time, it just felt they were all very common sense. And I was just surprising that general public doesn't have the awareness of all the dangers of the way we build today.
How long did it go on for?
For 2.5 years.
2.5 years. And
yes.
Did you pay for that?
Yes, this one I had to pay. It was a way cheaper than any master by that time. Maybe it was 3,000 a year or something like this. So it wasn't a crazy fee.
And then was that full time, 5 days a week, all day, or was it?
No, it was part time, and we had weekly meetings. We had so all the material was sent to us. Then we had to do exercises, send it. It was kind of doing it on your own time, but every month we'll be dealing with a subject. So it was 25 subjects to deal, and every month we were treating a subject, would be a specialist in the kind of Zoom meetings. You'll have group discussions during that whole month once a week. Exercises that your tutor would go through. Yeah, it was pretty good.
Okay. And did you find that like a good way of learning?
So what I really lacked in that course, it was having more practical experience. It was more addressed for academics or technical people, which I was at that right moment, So for me, I kind of did that course thinking that I'd be changing to eco-interior designer, But I just had a twist in my life after getting to know more about the materials and realizing that that was a way more fun.
Yeah. Nice. So you got a master's from that course, yeah?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So that's certified. So next you went and did, so it was volunteering from then, is that?
Yeah, so I did, because I didn't have much money. So while I was doing the master's, just at the beginning, I quit my job and then I started traveling and doing volunteering in places that I wouldn't have to pay, just to pay with my labor for food and accommodation. So I did it in Spain because actually I was like, why not? I explore my own country. And actually I spoke more English in Spain than sometimes in Bristol because it was very international network, in woofing. And so I got to work in different natural buildings. Not all of them were very professional.
Yeah.
So some of them people wouldn't know much what we were doing, but it was still a good play. Well, another big good project I went, it was to Greece for a month.
Mm-hmm.
With that one was volunteering too. That was they have these dry stone buildings, and it was like fix it all with earth. So earthen floor, earthen roof, earthen walls, and Tadelac bathroom.
Lovely.
So that one was very nice, and it was all local materials, grinding all the clay, everything. So that was very from scratch.
Yeah. Sort of taught or just working on that?
So it was like a course volunteering thing, but it was good because, so in some places I went to do volunteering, sometimes it felt that you were doing the same thing all the time, so you didn't get to learn much. This one, I really enjoyed it because it was like kind of like an explanation, and then we'll get to do it. So, and that's how I believe volunteering should be, because you are there to really get a good understanding of what you're doing and why you're doing it that way.
Yes. Have you found that volunteering is not always like that?
It depends the project. It really, really depends the project. So I guess it's just you need to know for who you're going to volunteer, but sometimes you just have no idea who does what. So, and that was me. I had no idea who was doing what. So I was just trying different places.
Yeah.
And then slowly you get to know who does what and who does it well.
Sometimes you're lucky, sometimes not so much.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So sort of workshops and things like that. You said you'd done some of those.
Workshops I've done with Ibukai when they do their clay fest. That was always good experiences. I did Tadel art course in Morocco. That one, well, Ibukai is paid. That one is paid.
Okay, well, let's talk. I mean, a good example would be the Ibuki. I don't know how you say that.
Well, if you don't know you're from this country, you should know better than me.
I just don't know how you pronounce that. The courses that you did at Clay Fest, like how long were they?
So you could choose. So the courses ran for a day, but you could repeat the course over a week or 4 days. So I think the workshops usually are 4 days, if I'm not wrong. And then if there's a subject that really interests you, you could do the same workshop the 4 consecutive days, because as in workshops and in construction, everything kind of move forwards every day. So if you want to see the whole process, or you want to keep improving what you want to do. For example, they have a decorative plaster work, and I did that one maybe 2 days.
Yeah.
Because that was the one I was most interested. Then I did another one about, don't remember the title, clay and fibers, experimentation type of thing. So yeah, the courses run for a day, so you book for a day, but you can book 4 days if you like.
It sounds like by that point you probably had quite a lot of experience. Do you think that
Mhm.
the courses were aimed at people that had never done anything, or people that were a bit better?
I guess it's for a very beginner and also intermediate, that you started to do something, but you might have some questions. And it's always good to be there and have a chat and discuss things.
Yeah.
I was learning when I was
So it was the right level for you.
yeah.
And what was the best bit?
I guess the chatting about Earth. And I don't know, I guess that as you get on and see someone doing things differently, it's like, oh, why are you doing this? Or, that's how you get to learn things.
Was there anything that didn't really work, or?
Not that I can think of. I guess that with the courses, I always want to carry on, have them longer, but no.
Well, that's
Can
good.
think of.
So having longer courses, so what would that enable you to do?
Well, I guess to complete things that you start. No, in a day you never accomplish anything. Well, maybe you do, but it's just like, it seems that if longer courses, you get to know more a process. Even if you do a plastering, it's not, you will never start something and get it to a finish the next day. It's the same with a wall or whatever you do with construction. It just feels like whatever course that you do for a day is a taster. If you already know what you're doing, then you might go directly to see what things they do differently and try to understand them and get something out of it. But you won't be able to really get to know exactly how to do something from a one-day course.
Okay, great.
So, yeah, I believe courses should be long, and even if possible, like with a practical experience afterwards that you can just stay and play.
Great. Okay. Yeah, was there any more sort of courses or, I guess, volunteering experiences that came before Princess Foundation?
I'm thinking, but just after Prince Foundation, that I went to see Vila and Athena's team.
Okay.
In Arizona, and that one was a very, very good one.
I bet.
Because it was like a playground for me, to be there with all they have there, and they are lovely, and I get to know, it's the people you go to volunteer and you go with your notebook, and taking notes of.
So that was volunteering with Bill and Athena?
Yeah, I went for about a month. I was staying with them and just like doing like an internship with them.
Fantastic. And how did that come about?
I met them in Ireland in their course, their Ebukai course, doing their decorative plasterwork, and that's where I got to know them. And then I emailed them, and in a way, kind of self-inviting myself, like asking, like, would that be a possibility? I'd love to. And yeah, it was a great experience to be there with them. The place is amazing, and just the whole surroundings are very inspiring.
Were you like cooking for yourself, or were you sort of part of the family, or?
Yeah, it was part of the family completely.
Great. Oh, nice.
Yeah, because it was only me and them. So lots of times she would set me up for the work, which teach me, but then it's like, oh, what you're doing. She was like, that's good. You can do it. And then sometimes I was just doing it on my own. If I had, we'll chat about it and then I'll just do it. But it was like a lab. They have everything you want in there.
Yeah.
To experiment. So. And
do you feel like that was do you feel like you learned a lot from that experience?
Yeah, I've learned a lot about the different ways she does the mixing for sculpting, and because I really wanted to learn more about the decorative part of it. And also what I found there is they are very prepared, like very good setup for teaching. That's where I've seen it is like, yes, this is the place to learn. Like
what made it so good for teaching?
I don't know. It's just everything was there prepared for you. All the trays, benches to work on, walls to work on. Just for teaching, and then lots of real builds to actually build and apply the skills. So because in workshops usually you just do something, you do a panel, you do a sample, but then it's like that's not the real life. That's the problem with the courses, that you do something for a day in a sample or for more days, but then that's not real life in a building site environment. So the good thing of that is that you had all those facilities, that they had it very well prepared and organized, all the materials, all the workspaces, surfaces, shelters, but then also they had different projects to work on to actually apply that into buildings.
Okay. So it was a good combo of practice and real life.
Yes.
Nice.
Although it was still in the same site and it was in their house, so it was not like a proper builder site, but still, it's just like you are not doing a panel. You're gonna work in that detail up there, and you need to decide how you're gonna approach it.
So would you say that was quite, it sounds like there was maybe a little bit of teaching and discussion, and then you were given quite a lot of time to do it yourself?
Yeah. They would come, see me, guide me if it needs to. Sometimes we would work together. Sometimes I would work on my own. It was very free-flowing, not super structured. It was just them and me. So it was not like a big group to organize.
Yeah. And that sounds fantastic for a start. Do you think, is there any way that the experience could have been better?
No, I was so content with it.
Great. That's a really nice situation to be in.
Yeah.
So are we at Prince's Foundation now? Is that
was just after Prince Foundation? Are we going back to Prince Foundation?
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes. Yeah. Because that was like a life-changing moment.
Yeah. How did it change your life?
Well, because it's when I started the Prince Foundation, I was self-employed, and I was in a strange mix of working few days a week as an interior designer, helping an architect, and then a few days a week working on site with some guys I met in Bristol that they were plasterers. So it was just like doing a bit of everything, but not fully, none of them, And I wanted to focus more in the plastering bit. These guys I met, they were doing conventional plastering, but they were taking some small jobs with lime. And that's when they would call me. And sometimes I would just go and do the conventional multi-finish plastering just to actually get the tool skill set. So it was in a kind of a moment that I didn't know how I was going to make it work professionally to actually become a natural plasterer. And it was the Princess Foundation who really helped me to put me in that route. And since then, I'm full-time plasterer and not looking back. And I'm working in very exciting projects with very nice people, and every day is a learning day.
Great. What was it about the Princess Foundation that attracted you to it?
It was that possibility to actually be working with the materials all the time, because as I said, I was doing a bit of plastering here, a bit of plastering there, a bit of experimentation in my own time. I didn't really know how to get started, or I didn't really have the contacts, or I didn't know who was doing what, or how old buildings really work, because I haven't been in them, taking them, scratching them, and looking into,
So the thing about the Princess Foundation was that you'd actually, get onto a multitude of different building, sites and opportunities.
Yeah, so it was the placements mostly, although the whole program is very good, no? Like the summer school where you get to learn a lot about traditional architecture. Also, you get to develop a bit your drawing skills. You get to know and share with people with different backgrounds, like from architecture to different crafts. So there's a very good exchange there. And then when I felt that I've learned loads, it was during the placements. You just get to know master crafts and working with them, and they're just so knowledgeable, and every day is a different task what you're doing. Everything what you do is different, and it's still like this. Every day on site is different. Every day you do things, never is the same. And what that gives you at the end is like an understanding of what decisions or solutions I will find whenever I need to be responsible of making the decisions of, okay, that's how we're going to do it. And that's what it works. And actually in this occasion, we're going to do it that way, or we're going to change this a bit. You know, it's just after experience and different experiences that you actually learn, because every job is different. So it's just a general understanding. And with the placements, not only that you get to go to different places, you also get to work with different people that got to different conclusions, and they have different ways of working. And then it's like, oh yeah, I like this from this person. I like that. That works. That I think I like more this. You know, it's a lot to learn and to take in a very short time.
Yeah.
But in my case, I kept working with the people I went on placement. So for me, that's also what it made it life-changing, because before I didn't know them, and now they are almost my family.
Oh, that's lovely. Who is it you're working with, by the way?
So the person I'm mainly working and that I'm working these days is Philip Cages, who is a master plasterer.
Okay.
I also occasionally do some work with Joanna Welsh, Bargeter.
Yeah.
And they are my two main contacts for working here.
Mm-hmm.
I did some work last summer, but that was out of Prince Foundation. But my earth contacts, my only earth contact in the country so far is Rebecca. I worked with her last summer. But yeah, it just feels like it's like three people keep me busy enough for me.
Great. So yeah, it sounds like one of the major things to come out of that course was actually just the contacts, meeting people that are doing this job, and we'll need people to work with them. Yeah,
definitely.
Great. What do you think? Well, let's talk about. So, how long was the Princess Foundation?
The Princess Foundations is 8 months, if I remember right. So it's not that long, but it's very intensively good.
Mm-hmm. And the placement part is it 3 or 4 months?
Yeah, about 4 months, I think, or 5. I don't know.
And it's paid?
Yeah, I think when I did it, it was £1,000 a month. And that was including your accommodation during the program, because in the program, there's some time that you are in London, some time that you are in Scotland, but then during placements, you are just from one place to another. So I don't know if that changed now, but when I did it, it was like this, and they would organize your accommodation during the placements.
So your £1,000 a month was, you didn't have to pay for accommodation, you just had to pay for food.
Yeah, subsistence, driving around.
Great. And how do you think you could have done that course if you weren't being paid?
Saving the same way I did lots of saving. Well, I hope that not getting paid, but no. So when I did all my volunteering, I did it in a way that I could get the food and accommodation in exchange of my labor, because or you have savings or you have lots, I don't know. But if you are not actively working, if you don't have any income and you cannot be in work because you are doing some volunteering, you really need to have savings.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't always work, right?
It's a real barrier to stopping people be able to do this. It means that it's only people that well, you found a particularly, a very thrifty way to do it, but it's, I guess the trade-off is that you've got maybe not the best education, not the best training. The people don't necessarily know what they're doing.
So the Prince Foundation is very good because you are very well supported during all that time. And the program is very well structured, well planned, and the people involved, they are very good professionals. So it was very positive. So that was what really, really helped me to now be the plasterer that I am today.
Oh, excellent. Were there any issues with it? Any problems, or any ways you could make it better?
No, not that I can think of. Only it'd be great if the program could be even longer. I guess in my case, it worked out okay because I finished the placements and I started working with the same person straight away.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was also lucky. I felt everyone in the program was like, oh my God, now this is done. So yeah, it feels like you want it to last longer and make the most of it and continue learning. But we're not going to ask for more always, we just need to be happy with what we get.
What was like the highlight?
It's just like the experience overall. Maybe also the fact of the sharing this experience with another group of people that you are all doing the same thing. The life build was a very nice experience. It was like being back in school. Feel very young again. Yeah, I guess the life build was very nice because it was that teamwork and lots of exchange between the different crafts and getting to understand more about stone, about wood, that actually I'm not getting to do any of that work, but in the buildings where I'm working, I get to see lots of timber frame and lots of stonework, and then you kind of understand more what they're doing.
Is there any training that you'd like to do in the future?
I'd like to go to Japan and learn more about the Japanese plastering. I think that's the only thing I can think of right now.
So what do you think over the course of your time training, what do you think, or have there been any surprises or any things that surprised you?
I don't know. No. No surprises.
Okay.
I guess that not a surprise, but the only thing to say is that all the people I found in this journey has been great. It's just been all flowing very nicely. So not a surprise, but it feels like almost like being in a magical path.
Lovely. I like that. Have you found there's any obstacles to getting this learning?
The obstacles were really at the beginning, no? But that I was like, right, I really want to do this. That's how the wall should be built. But yeah, the obstacle was how to get started. No, I kind of went all the way around it. I traveled the world. I just found very random opportunities. And finally, it was kind of shaping my way. But yeah, there was obstacles because, of course, I was continue doing my design work and doing this sort of thing in my free time, volunteering or going to workshops or just making a mess in the house. So, yeah, the obstacle was really to get started. And I guess it just took me a few years and going and slowly finding that path until I kind of found myself in the path and say, okay, that feels good. I don't know where it's taking me, but it felt right.
And do you mean getting started in the learning or actually in the doing it as a job?
Both things, because I didn't really found. So I guess the first time I found a good learning program. So I don't know which one, if it was first the Grains teaser in France, that in Crater, when they do that event, like similar to a Ibukai. And the Ibukai, no, it was like the big, great events about earth building. And I was like, oh, I'm not alone, there's lots of people here for the same thing, and wow, because it really felt I was quite alone in there, like just doing my own thing and not really knowing much people doing it. So yeah, I guess the obstacle is like finding slowly who's doing things and what is a good place to learn, who's a good person to go and learn. But yeah, you need to start somewhere, no? So I started in some crappy places as well, but then eventually I got in better places. But it's part of the journey, I guess.
And then, if you were designing a training program for you, the next generation of Earth builders, what do you think it would look like?
I think definitely we'll need placements on site. So I guess like spending some time off site at the beginning, so to go through the basic, to get to understand them. So once you arrive to site, you kind of know more or less what you're doing. So I guess some practical and theoretical training beforehand is important, but then going together with placements on building site and spending months and doing different things and seeing different scenarios, even if it's the same thing, even if you're doing Adobes, but being in more than one building site, because probably the shapes, so I don't know, might be different ways to approach things. And if possible, with funded placements.
With funded placements, yes.
Yeah.
And then I think my final question is like, what's been your biggest achievement?
Just, I guess, day a day is like as well as a learning is an achievement. Every day, I don't have like a one big achievement. I've been involved in very good projects and I've been very happy with the results of the different ones. I can say this one is better than the other, but that's why I guess every day is an achievement.
Yeah, is there anything else you wanted to say? That's all I've got to ask.
Well, the only thing, if anyone is considering if taking this route or not, just to follow their hearts, because when I decided to take the decision, it didn't seem that there was anything for me there. My family was not supporting, or people were saying, yeah, that's fun, but you're not gonna live from it, and I'm doing it and I'm very happy doing it. So just encouraging people to actually help to make our construction environment nice for everyone.
Thank you both so much to Kit and Anna for giving their time and discussing just so openly and honestly about what was good and what wasn't. I'll save the discussion on the content for the end of the next episode. So roll straight into the next episode and hear 2 more trainees' experiences. Just a quick note to say that if you are new here, make sure you subscribe and check out the other episodes. There are lots of earth building related topics, clay plastering in Japan, a chat with Becky Little of EBUKI. And also, if you enjoyed this podcast and you want to show some support, then head to the Patreon page. That is patreon.com/building sustainability. I've made the support option as cheap as buy me a cup of tea. And it really does make the world of difference to me, as I've reduced my paid working week to produce this podcast, and it would be wonderful not to be too far out of pocket. But, times are tight, and I understand. Until next time, see you, bye.